Okay, good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to the Adult Reentry Grant. Oh, this is not warm handoff. I am so sorry. This is rental assistance cohort 2. I just realized I had that wrong. Good morning and welcome back to our rental assistance cohort 2 grantee orientation. I hope you all had a restful night's sleep and are here awake and eager to get some more good information. On the agenda before you, we are going to reintroduce our staff, make sure you're familiar with who we are. We will have some grantee presentations today, so make sure that you are ready. We'll talk a little bit about your programmatic responsibilities, and then we'll have a presentation from Christopher Martin. He's the policy director with Housing California. He's going to talk to us about housing first. So a few quick housekeeping to review before we get started. One, please double check your name. Make sure you have your first and last name identified on your Zoom screen. Please also remember to keep yourselves muted if you are not actively engaging a conversation with us. Please, please, please keep your cameras on. Don't be camera shy. We are trying to connect. Remember, like we would normally be in person where we would be able to meet and greet and do all those wonderful things, but this is the only way we'll be able to put names and faces together. So please, please, please keep your cameras on so that we can connect with each other, we can see faces, we can make some type of a connection as much as possible in this virtual environment. I missed some of your faces yesterday when I was scrolling through the screens to see, you know, how everybody was doing. So please keep your cameras on. And also remember, there are no breaks built into the schedule. So definitely as you need to, you know, take your bathroom breaks, grab your water or your coffee or whatever you need, because we do not have any breaks built in. Okay, so to start, I'll let the team say good morning. Veronica?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for participating with us again here on day 2 of the grantee orientation.
Thanks. Remember, Veronica is going to be your primary analyst that you'll be working with throughout your grant cycle. We also have Adriana.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the rental assistance orientation.
Thank you, Adriana. Adriana is another program analyst on our team. Danielle Feist.
Hi, everybody. Welcome, day 2. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Danielle. And Danielle is our third and newest program analyst on the team. Rosa Pargas, Staff Services Manager. Are you here, Rosa? Would you like to say good morning?
I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you. Ricardo Goodridge, I saw you. Would you like to say good morning?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back.
I know we were expecting our executive director, Katie Howard. Has she been able to join us yet?
Not yet, but she is expecting to, so perhaps the ladies can just monitor for Katie's login information.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, we also have Ashley Garibaldi, who is not on the call with us this week. And then, of course, me, Tanya Hill. I am your field rep. All right, well, we're going to jump right in. And I hope you guys are ready. Our first grantee presentation this morning is coming from our our Solus distribution. Woo! Before our Solus takes the mic, I do want to give the caveat that our Solus is actually in our rental cohort 1, but they wanted to join the orientation, make sure they had all the information. They got a couple of new staff on board that they want to make sure are up to speed. So they asked for the invitation. So I was gladly able to extend that welcome to them. So let them share who they are.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Candy Thornton, and I am the program director for our Solis House, our Solis Distribution Center and Community Services. And first of all, I want to start off by apologizing for yesterday because we had technical difficulties in the building where all the electricity went out right in the middle of me sitting here trying to receive all the information that I need to move forward. So I just want to apologize for that. With that being said, I have Miss Sakati Shaw, which is sitting in with us this morning. She's the executive assistant. And then on also is Bernice Tingle and Jennifer Kemp, which is our finance team. Our Solis has been around since 1999. Our Solis House has been around since 1999, housing mentally challenged and different types of clients with different types of issues. We became a part of this project with the reentry program last year, 2019, and we are really excited about being a part of the reentry program, which in the past, I think it was 2014, I had already started working with men and women that were formerly incarcerated at that time. That's what it was called, from being formerly incarcerated. So we took on that role back in 2014. And then when this project came forth, I was like, yes, I said, I really wanted to really get back into helping the men and women to serve them. So when they return home, they have a lot of the different services that are necessary for them to move forward in life. And so with that being said, we have a total of, I believe it's 11 houses, and we have a total of 38 clients right now today, men and women, who are doing very well in the program. Most of them are working. We have had at least 4 that has graduated and moved on. It gave them the opportunity to be able to, work and save money and be able to get their own place. So we do have 2 men and 2 women that has graduated. We call graduation when they leave our program to go ahead and go into their own apartments. And it's been a good transition for them, because they, when they first got out, they wasn't able to get housing in their own names, but by them coming up under the program of our Solis House, we were able to be a reference for them and let them know. And that was an experience for a lot of the owners, of the homeowners or the managers that were giving them housing. It was an easy process. They just called and wanted to just ask how they doing, how did they do, as far as, making sure that the property wasn't destroyed or anything like that. But I have a great group of people that, not only just my team, but the people that we actually work with. It has been really a great experience to be able to house the men and women and then just work with them. We're looking forward to this providing more services for them. Right now, we do have services where we can provide clothes for them, because we get free things from Men's Warehouse and things of that sort. However, we wanted to be able to provide more services for them. So with this soft hands warmth, we looking forward to doing reach-in services, and we pretty much want to base that towards women, basically. We also want to be able to provide case management services, transportation. We're already doing the food, and we like to do emergency services. We also set up where we want to do the employment and vocational and social services, as well as transitional services. So that's kind of what we're interested in, trying to be able to provide more services, not just housing, but services for the men and women that we serve.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Candy.
Thank
you for sharing. Looking forward to seeing how well you all continue to bring forth all those great services into the community.
Thank you.
So good work, good work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. So I guess we just gonna roll right on along and get started. All right, so today, oh, see, I got it right there. That says rental assistance. Go figure. So today, we'll start with having a little bit of discussion around some of the program responsibilities that you'll be responsible to adhere to as you go through your grant term with us. Some of the topics we'll look at today will be leadership and communication, modeling integrity, progress reports. And this is really just an opportunity to talk about the value that progress reports bring to your projects, how we use them. Danielle is going to give you a more hands-on look tomorrow at how to actually complete your progress report and things like that. So we'll talk a little bit more about progress reports. We'll look at modifications that you may need to make to your project, and we'll talk a little bit about project director calls. So let's start with leadership. As grantees, you are all leaders of your projects. And as the leaders, you do want to make sure that your full team is in the communication loop and that there's a common understanding about your goals and your expectations. You want to make sure that your internal partners, your external partners, everybody is on one team and rowing the boat in the same direction in order to make sure you get to your program outcomes and the things that you're wanting to provide in the community. That leadership piece is key, and it will go a long way in helping to make sure that your project reaches success. Oh, I understand that we'll push pause for a minute. I do understand that our executive director has joined the call. Katie.
Good morning, everyone. Excuse me, I'm getting my camera on. I think I'm there now. Yeah, there I am. Yes, I'm looking in the wrong direction. Sorry, my camera's in kind of a weird spot. Good morning to you, fantastic, successful applicants for the Rental Assistance Grant. My name's Katie Howard, like Tanya said. I'm the executive director of the BSCC. And I just want to, I'm going to listen in for a little while. I just want to give you my heartfelt appreciation for the work that you're doing. I feel like the reentry services are absolutely critical to strengthening partnerships between government and community-based service providers like you. And we learn so much each and every time we begin a new program. So I'll just listen for a little bit, again, saying congratulations. If this is your first time involved in a BSCC grant, welcome. We hope to be a great resource and support to you as you provide these essential services out in the field. So thank you so much. And I'm just gonna listen for a bit. Thank you, Tanya.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you, Katie. And what a perfect time for our executive director to pop in as we're talking about leadership. So remember that one of your key roles is to provide strong leadership for your project and make sure that you have communicated the goals and objectives to everyone on your team. Communication, another key point. You do want to make sure that your project goals are clearly identified and outlined for your teams to know where you're going. You want to make sure that your project timelines are clearly defined, that everybody knows this is what we need to do and when we need to do it. Again, like we talked about those due dates and all of those key components that go into your project, you want to make sure that those things are clearly defined so everyone knows. You want to make sure that people know who to contact and for what. You want to know, they need to know when to reach out to the financial team, when to reach out to the case managers. So you want to make sure that your lines of communication within your project are clear. People know where to go, when to go there, and what orders you need people to communicate in. So you do want to make sure you've outlined those pieces as well. Any key activities and dates, try to plan those out. Make sure people are aware of what those key things are. When are we going to launch this new group? When are we going to have this graduation? All of those key things that go into making your project successful, you want to make sure that you have those outlined and strongly communicated throughout your team so that everybody knows what the expectation is, what the standards are, where we're going, and how we need to get there. And then probably one of the most important things you'll define or you'll do in terms of managing your program is identifying those roles and responsibilities. It's really, really important to make sure people know who's responsible for what, where we're sharing responsibilities, what those roles are, whether it's the case manager, whether it's the project director, doesn't matter what the role is. Every role is essential because every piece plays a part into making the whole thing work together. And our biggest goal is to impact the community, put a dent in homelessness, and make sure that the needs are served. So as long as you can get those things outlined and make sure people are clear as to what's expected, who's doing what, things like that, you have a better chance of making sure your project will be successful. And at the end of the day, that's what we at the BSCC are here to do and support you in. We want to make sure that you launch a successful project, that you carry your project through to successful completion. Modeling integrity. Just remember that you were awarded funds under this grant based on your proposal to deliver a specific defined intervention, right? So there is an expectation that you will adhere to the model that you were funded to deliver throughout the term of the grant. If there are problems that do arise with that model, please be sure to let me know so that we can provide the proper guidance to support your project. Generally speaking, though, you should have a mechanism in place that will allow you to ensure long-term adherence to your intervention model. So whatever it is that you're putting in place, that quality control and that integrity to your proposal and to those interventions are going to be key. Remember yesterday, Helene spoke about fidelity and the importance of adhering to the intervention model to effectively impact recidivism. This is a similar concept, except this is about you adhering to your proposal. When you talk about fidelity, what you're doing is you're making sure that all of the pieces that are outlined for whatever that model is that you've designed are followed as closely to the letter as they can be. Like Helene talked about how when certain projects didn't follow the model, recidivism increased, as opposed to when they followed the model, recidivism actually decreased. So you want to make sure that to produce successful outcomes that you are following the model that you laid out. If you've done your research and you've created a proposal that was awarded, that means you showed us that you thought through what you wanted to do. You had a good plan. Follow your plan. If for some reason you need to make adjustments, let's talk about it so we can make sure that you continue to bring good outcomes to the community. Quarterly progress reports. Like I mentioned earlier, Danielle is going to give you a detailed account of the progress report process tomorrow. But the key thing for you to take away here today is that when you're managing your grant award, you do need to make sure that you're adhering to the stipulations of your grant agreement. Your progress reports are the main tool you have to communicate with the BSCC about how your project is going. So you do want to make sure that you're submitting your progress reports on time. And of course, making sure that you're communicating the milestones and the progress that you're making and any challenges that you're having. One of the things that we want to be able to support you through are the challenges as well as the successes of your project. Modifications. So we do understand that sometimes things will need a little bit of tweaking. And there are basically two types of modifications that are addressed in your grant guide on pages 53 and 54. And there are the substantive changes, and then there are the non-substantive changes. The non-substantive changes are those changes that do not affect the scope or the objectives of your project, and they don't require any amendments to your grant agreement. So they're going to be things like budget modifications, which we're going to talk about in some detail tomorrow. Changes in key staff, which we talked about yesterday when we talked about your grantee contact sheet. Changes in project activities that do not affect the stated goals or objectives. So say you were going to do a specific program or implement a specific intervention, but you want to switch it a little bit because you've discovered something works better, or some of the things that I've heard grantees say is, well, we discovered that our population needs this more than that. So now we need to make some adjustments, things like that. Changes in operational agreements or changes to your physical or mailing address. Those are non-substantive changes, but they still need to be communicated to the BSCC. So you still want to make sure that you are connecting with your field rep, identifying what these situations may be, and making sure that we're able to sustain you through those changes and allow you to, or make sure that you're remaining in compliance with your grant agreement. And then some of those substantive changes that you may need to make are the ones that affect your project scope, objectives, or your specific program components. Now, these are going to be a bit more critical and are going to require a lot more detail to address. So if you do determine that you need to make any substantive changes to your project, you have to discuss them with your field rep prior to implementation. You must provide a detailed narrative that will explain why your change is necessary and what the outcome will be if the modification is not approved. You also need to show the need to modify your project arose out of circumstances that were beyond your control. And these changes must be submitted by your project director. So those are the bigger changes, and those are the ones that we usually will need to make sure that we discuss with our executive team or our legal counsel, just to make sure that we are staying in line with the grant agreement and staying in line as close as possible to what the nature of the RFP or the project identified. The main takeaway from here is any changes you want to make, just give me a call. We're here to help and support. Oh, the other thing to think about as well, as we all know, we are in the midst of a pandemic. COVID-19 is real. If COVID-19 has impacted your proposed project in any way, shape, or form and is putting you in a position where you need to reevaluate how you intended to provide services, I know when COVID first struck, a lot of us, we had to move to a virtual platform and different things like that. So as you're finding that you need to make these changes for COVID-19, please make sure that you're reaching out to me and let's talk about what we can do to support that movement. Project director calls. These are another one of the tools that we use to keep in touch, to help you stay informed about our program updates or fiscal updates. And it's a way for you to keep us informed about how your project is going. As the name implies, it is intended for all project directors to be on these calls, but please invite anyone on your team that you think is critical and should get the information. Your first project director calls will be scheduled for January. Because our project is so large, we have broken those calls up. So we do project director calls literally like for 4 weeks and we're doing 2 and 3 calls a day because there are so many of you that belong to this particular grant project. So you'll start getting those invites to schedule your project director calls for January. You'll start getting those in the next couple of weeks. But definitely be prepared on the project director calls to talk about your accomplishments and barriers, talk about any challenges that you're facing. You'll be giving us a project report out, basically. You'll let us know what progress you've made, like how many you've enrolled, things like that. That's really the purpose. The other key thing that we like to see with the project director calls is an opportunity for you to network. It's a chance for you to connect with your colleagues, share ideas, get solutions to some of the struggles that you may be encountering in the community. So that's what those project director calls are for. And be ready because they'll be coming really soon. Monitorings. We do several types of monitoring visits throughout the life of the grant. And I'll start with the caveat that, of course, in COVID-19, travel has been postponed. So the monitorings for right now are certainly not happening on site. As a team, we are looking at how to introduce or incorporate virtual monitorings. But just know that there is a monitoring component that goes along with the BSCC's responsibility. The different types of monitoring visits that we might do would be your initial monitoring visit or your initial visit. This is usually done within the first year of your project. And the purpose of that is to allow us to get to know you, your staff, your project's infrastructure, make sure you're getting everything set up and launched as you had outlined. Not everyone gets those. It's really just, as we can see, we'll try to get out. Technical assistance visits are there to provide any additional in-depth support that might be necessary to assist your project in meeting their proposed objectives. These can be initiated by the grantee or they can be initiated by BSCC. If you have issues that may be impacting the outcomes of your project and you want some additional support or guidance from us, absolutely reach out and we can make the time to provide you that additional support. The comprehensive monitoring visit, these are the big ones. These visits will happen at least once during the grant cycle. This is the only visit that I can say for sure every grant should have at least one. The comprehensive monitoring visit is a detailed assessment of the administrative, fiscal, and program components of your project. Typically, the field rep is going to coordinate with the project director. We'll find a time and a date to come out to visit. It's important to have all your critical key relevant staff, so your financial officer, your fiscal people, your program delivery staff, any of your subcontractors or your sub-grantees, anyone that you're contracting with to provide services. All of those folks are important in that comprehensive visit. So we'll have to make sure that we schedule the time to make sure that the field rep has an opportunity to see all of those components as they impact your project. We will provide you in advance, like 60 to 90 days in advance, we'll give you a copy of the CMV tool or the Comprehensive Monitoring Visit tool. You can see a sample copy of that on the CPGP website under the quick links, which is on the right side of the page, if you want to take a sneak peek. And we'll also put a sample copy of one in our virtual binder that is currently under construction for you. But we'll send that tool out to you. You'll be able to go through it piece by piece, step by step, and make sure that you have all of those pieces in place before we come out for our visit. So that's the comprehensive monitoring visit. Compliance visits are typically initiated if there are findings during the comprehensive visit or if there have been some particular concerns that may have prompted a corrective action. The compliance visit is an opportunity for us to provide any technical assistance to support you in addressing any concerns and ensure that you're following through with your proposed plan that you created. What I understand from talking with some of my colleagues, this is not a frequent occurrence. We don't have many compliance visits necessary, and I'm certainly not anticipating that this group is going to change that record. The special event visits, these are the fun ones. These are the ones where you all get to invite us out to participate in some of those special events that you have, like Miss Candy talked about, the graduation, different things like that, graduations, award ceremonies. If you guys are showcasing your project at a community event and you want the BSCC to come out, those are some of the special event visits that we could do. And then lastly, we do some closeout visits. Those are not necessarily done for every project, but if we do come out and do a closeout visit, it's really just a way for us to make sure that everything is neat and tidy and cleaned up properly and closed out. The other thing I'll say here is please don't expect that you'll get all of these on-site visits, but definitely plan for the comprehensive one. That one is the requirement. All right, so key takeaways from this section is number one, remember to maintain good communication with your staff, definitely good communication with your field rep and your ARG team, good communication with your stakeholders, your external, your internal folks that are helping you to get your project off the ground and running efficiently. Make sure that you're focusing on your goals and maintaining clear direction. Keep your proposed project front of mind and make sure that everything you're doing is driven by what that plan is. Make sure that you document your program and quality control plan. And if I haven't said it enough, document. That is the key, especially when you start talking about getting ready for the comprehensive monitoring visit, doing your invoices, your desk reviews, all of those things. If your documentation is in order, then you will be golden. So make sure that you document your program and your quality control plan, how you intend to make sure that you're following your proposed project. And then make sure that you're keeping your records organized, and those things are going to make your invoicing processes easier. Your site visits will be easier, and all of those things that you have to do for us will be a walk in the park. All right, we'll open it up for any questions.
As far as chat goes, Tanya, we did receive a question from Kim Carter. How often are PD calls, the project director calls?
The project director calls, Kim, are quarterly. So we'll do our first ones in January. So then every quarter thereafter. So March, April, so on and so forth.
Thank you, Tanya. That's all for chat.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody need to unmute and just ask a question? Awesome. Okay, so next up, we have another grantee presentation. Our next up to present today is, drum roll please, Catalyst Foundation, you're up.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Jim McGrath. I am the Director of Prison and Reentry Programs at the Catalyst Foundation. On the call with us today, we have our Director of Operations and Finance, Melissa Simmons. We have our Program Manager for our BSCC Warm Handoff and Rental Assistance Programs, Mr. David Garnica. And we also have a Financial Assistant, Joanna Garcia. It is our pleasure to be with you guys. We are extremely excited and happy to have this rental assistance program as another tool in our tool belt. As I mentioned, we also are participating in the warm handoff. We have a total of 4 reentry programs at the Catalyst Foundation, in addition to our CBEST program, where we do SSI advocacy and other outreach programs that we have. The Catalyst Foundation has been serving the homeless population and the formerly incarcerated for quite some time, even prior to having an official reentry program. As we all know, a lot of the homeless population are formerly incarcerated. So we've been working with that population for quite some time, and we are extremely excited about these new opportunities that we have to serve them. I'm extremely excited personally, on a personal level, because I'm formerly incarcerated myself. I did 24 years in California State Prison. I've been home for 5 years now. So I have a lot of experience with what it's like to do extended periods of incarceration and return to the community. as well as Mr. Garnica has that same experience, our program manager. So we know firsthand what it's like to look for a place to live. We know what it's like to re-enter society after a long period of time. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing with our rental assistance program. We're calling our project the Housing First Reentry Program. We will primarily serve those in northern Los Angeles County and eastern Kern County, which is where the Antelope Valley is nestled at. We're SPA 1. We're not a large area, but we have about 475,000 people in that area of LA County and Kern County. It's a geographically isolated desert community. We're about 70 miles from Los Angeles and about 100 miles from Bakersfield. It's an often overlooked and extremely underserved region with poor public transportation and very little social services. So there's a big demand for help out here, and we're extremely pleased to be a part of providing that. Our program will target individuals who were formerly incarcerated in the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless in the Antelope Valley area. There's an extreme need for housing programs for this population, as they are largely ineligible for standard housing assistance. Housing is particularly critical in this geographical area because we get the extremes in both weathers. We get 115-degree summers, we get 14-degree winters. So, there's not really any time of year where it's good for people to be on the street. So we definitely have a big need for housing out here, and we look forward to participating in that. As I said, we are proud to have formerly incarcerated people on our staff. We are proud to be serving this population, and we look forward to working with you all in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate it. And I am excited to see the work that you guys continue to bring forth. You guys are a warm handoff winner as well, correct? Yes. So you're now a double winner?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on your additional award. And again, looking forward to seeing some more great work come out of your project.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next up. Next up, we have a special guest that'll be presenting for us, Christopher Martin. He's Policy Director with Housing California. And I will let him share his screen and give you a little bit of background about who he is and share his presentation with you. Chris?
Great, thank you. Let me see if I can figure this out. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, you want to put it in presentation view because we can see your.
You betcha.
Yep, there you go.
Great. Perfect. Well, thanks for having me here today, everyone. It's great to be with you all, and I really am excited about this grant in general and what it can do for people that are formerly incarcerated and what we can do to support them in their reentry. So really excited about this and look forward to kind of seeing all the great work you all do and really just want to express my appreciation for all of your work as well. So I'm here today to talk about Housing First and kind of the intersection between criminal justice and homelessness. My name is Christopher Martin. I'm our policy director at Housing California. Also sit on the executive steering committee for the Adult Reentry Grant Program and was excited about this when it got started and really excited to see how things play out moving forward. So I have quite a few slides that I'm going through here. If you have like quick questions that I can manage in a quick clarification, feel free to throw it in there. But if it's a little bit of a larger question, I'd love for folks to hold it until the end because I'll probably answer it throughout the process here and have a lot to cover as it relates to Housing First here. So I'm just in terms of agenda, I'll talk through kind of things that you probably all very well know, the intersections between housing and justice involvement, and then jump into what Housing First is and then how it plays out. I really want to get into some concrete models about how how Housing First plays into this sector. First, quickly about us, Housing California, we're an advocacy nonprofit. We have done work around securing funding for affordable and supportive housing, worked on Props 1 and 2 in 2018. We advance legislation in the building, and then we also build power. We have our Residents United Network, which is a group of over 100,000 people that live in affordable housing that advocate for investment and for other people to benefit from the same intervention. So wanted to start off with a story about Zandre. She's in Los Angeles. Zandre was in jail and then prison and cycled through incarceration and homelessness for upwards of 40 years. And whenever she would re-enter society back into the public, she fell back into homelessness and oftentimes recidivated. But luckily, the affordable housing system eventually found Zandre an affordable place to live. They provided her services to get her connected to mental health and substance use treatment. And she has been able to stay stably housed ever since, which was a little over 7 years ago. She, of course, was able to improve her health and obtain a full-time job. And she's now an OSHA construction inspector and has been promoted to supervisor and works as an advocate in the Speak Up program for the Corporation for Supportive Housing in Los Angeles, and has really been able to find stability through affordable and supportive housing through this Housing First model. And she's really a testament to how this can play out and be successful. And she is one hell of an advocate, I'll tell you that. She's probably better than me. So this is what I'm saying. I think a lot of this is stuff you all know, but of course, we know a lot about housing instability and justice involvement and the challenges that people that are formerly incarcerated face upon reentry. People that are experiencing homelessness are 7 times more likely to recidivate than people that have access to housing. And about half of all people experiencing homelessness report some history of incarceration. And of course, are 27 times more likely if you are formerly incarcerated to be unstably housed or homeless than the general public. So of course, these numbers are very striking and very, there's a clear connection here between housing and homelessness. You see on this slide, you can see the general public rate of 21 per 10,000 people experiencing homelessness, and then the rates for people that are formerly incarcerated, broken down by race, sex, age, prior history, and time since they were released. And just these numbers really demonstrate this clear connection of formerly incarcerated people facing quite the challenges upon reentry. When you look at it a little bit broader than homelessness and look at housing insecurity, the numbers are even worse. You start looking at, 367 people per 10,000 face, housing insecurity, living in a very unstable situation and on the brink of homelessness. So not only do we have people that are sheltered homeless and unsheltered experiencing homelessness, but also this strike number around people that are facing housing insecurity and on the brink of homelessness. So just quickly about the cycle between incarceration and homelessness that we see. When people re-enter society, they often face eligibility challenges for resources. Their criminal history provides a barrier for them to access housing, and then therefore can only access certain types of housing that don't really provide stability. And then that provides, a more likelihood, as we talked about just shortly ago, 7 times more likely to recidivate and then end up back in jail or prison, and therefore creates this cycle of incarceration and homelessness, a cycle that we're trying to break with housing. So a little bit about homelessness and how we can solve homelessness. Believe it or not, we do know how to solve homelessness here in California and nationwide. but really it is a housing intervention with services to remain stably housed. It's as simple as that. You know, we know that, you know, housing is really the precondition to being able to be stable in life, whether it be with your mental health, with substance use, with any general health conditions you may have. It's really hard to address those needs without being stably housed. And so, you know, we know what it takes to reach this stability in life, and that is, you know, it is housing with no preconditions, housing with the services that wrap around somebody and really allow them to remain stably housed. And that gets us to kind of what Housing First is. So Housing First is the model in which has been successful around the world, and has been something that California decided to embrace in 2016. And these are really the core principles of Housing First. Just to run through quickly, I'll run more in depth shortly, but low barrier entry to housing means no preconditions for housing, no drug screenings to get into housing. It's kind of this concept that everyone's housing ready, everyone's ready to access housing, and we don't need criminal history would not be a prerequisite to accessing housing and such. So no barriers or low barriers to entry into housing. Quick access to housing gets at that housing ready. Everyone's housing ready. Everyone's ready to get to some type of housing intervention. And so there's no, it's getting away from that, that concept that not everyone's ready to access housing. Robust support services, really, you know, wraparound services, mental health treatment, housing stability services, substance use treatment, with assertive engagement, which is, you know, to check in on that person and make sure they're getting the right services and maybe make adjustments as necessary as things play out. So really those wraparound robust services. Tenancy not being dependent upon participation in services. I'll talk about this shortly about the evidence here, but not that services are voluntary. If somebody does not want to participate in those services, they are not forced to, and they would not then lose their housing because they are they choose not to participate in those services. Of course, embracing a harm reduction approach, and then finally, leases and tenant protections. This has to do with, you know, what you or I would have when we sign a lease and get access to housing. They have the rights of tenancy that you and I would have, and they would have a lease as well, similar to what anybody else in addressing or in accessing housing would have. So this is very in-depth. And this is the bill. I don't go through all of this. This is really in the nitty-gritty details of what's in SB 1380. But that bill that passed in 2016 required all funding programs that the state is funding to address any aspect of homelessness to require that those programs follow the Housing First principles. It gave the state 3 years to get in compliance, and so that had to happen by 2019. And so you can see here kind of the very detailed version of requirements of SB 1380 and how it plays out in practice in bill language. But I won't bore you with this, and you can probably, I'm sure you'll see it in the slideshow when she shares it with you. So I like to also, because we get a lot of questions about what Housing First is, what Housing First isn't, because there's a lot of misconceptions about Housing First. I kind of talked about Housing First and what it is, right? It's client choice, it's voluntary services, it's kind of providing the appropriate housing for the person that based on what they need, and you know, making sure they have those services that can help them remain stably housed. What it isn't is housing only, right? We get a lot of people say this, that Housing First is just housing and that's going to solve it. Well, it's housing with services. It's housing with stability services and things that will help them remain stably housed and what they need. It's of course not eviction or losing those services based on a positive drug test or failure to participate in activities. And this, I want to clarify here, is based on the housing provider. This is not if they have a positive drug test with their parole agent. That's a different discussion than this program and this funding source. Those are conditions of parole that are handled by parole, not by their housing provider. This has to do with the housing provision and not with their terms of parole. It's also not, the last two kind of go hand in hand. It's not anything goes. It's still, like I couldn't, just like in my apartment here, I couldn't, cook meth and share it with all my neighbors. It's not like that is what's happening here. You still have to adhere by the laws of the state of California and the federal government. And this all has to do with the housing provision and not with the rest of society. And the rest of the criminal justice system. Think of those two things as separate. And this really just has to do with the housing provision aspect of it. And if somebody breaks their lease, if they are found to be doing those things, those are violations of leases, just like if I was doing it. So just to clarify some things that common questions we get. So again, I hit on this a little bit to this point, but it really is taking this housing ready stuff out of screening and really connecting the client to housing and services, regardless of whether they're sober, regardless of whether they're taking the right medication or have poor credit history or a criminal background. It's really just taking those preconditions out of getting people into housing, getting them access to housing and trying to find stability. So as I mentioned about voluntary services, it's fascinating, but I always like to, not to compare this to children, but like if you tell a child to do something, they're probably not going to do it. But if you make it voluntary, they're more likely to do it. It's kind of this weird dynamic here. And we actually find that tenants, and when people have something as a choice, they typically participate at a much higher rate than when it's mandatory. It sounds counterintuitive, but it actually has been proven by multiple studies that tenants are much more likely to participate in services when they're doing it out of their own fruition and out of their own choice. And so that's why we find that this model is so much more successful, because they're able to access those services and be more successful with those services when they're voluntary and made by choice and not out of force. So this gets at the service piece. It's really just connecting services to people based on what they need, whether that be mental health services, it could be workforce development services. It's really just, assessing the tenant and finding out what they need. And this gets at the larger housing system here, and obviously is a little bit larger than what you all will be doing with rental assistance, but the idea here is to connect them to services and make sure that they have access to those services, because those are just as critical as the rental assistance can be, is providing those services so people can find stability and remain stably housed. And these are just examples of various services that are typically included in supportive housing for people. So just quickly on different housing interventions here to point out, people talk about residential treatment and housing, two different types of things. One is a treatment model and one of them is a housing model. And residential treatment is more of a care and supervision type model. Probably don't need to spend a bunch of time on this, but just to point out that there's two different types of interventions here. And one is a more heavily engaged, more supervision style model. And the other is the housing first supportive housing model, which is more of what you would consider a traditional housing intervention, which is more, like it says, security, not supervision. It's independent living. And it's less of a strict treatment model. And some folks do need residential treatment, some folks don't. Many folks can find stability in supportive housing. So hit on this already, but really permanent housing just means no limit on length of stay. Tenants have leases, they have the rights that are required within those things. You know, apartments, you know, just to give an idea or the kind of visual of what this is, we're just talking about an apartment that's affordable to somebody. It could be like what you or I live in. And typically integrated apartments, bathrooms and kitchens are critical because, you know, you can't eat out every meal. And so, you know, people need to have those resources to be able to live on their own. And, you know, this gets at the last piece here is the average length of stay. Most people typically stay in supportive housing about 3 years and then can find independence and be able to live off of their own. But many people still need that supportive housing for their life. So there are some people that will need supportive housing for the rest of their life because of, you know, either a medical condition, behavioral health condition, what have you. But the average is about 3 years. Supportive housing is just the housing with the services aspect to it. So I'll probably skip over this one since we talked about it. So Housing First, believe it or not, is not new. We have over 25 years of Housing First evidence over quite some time. And it's been proven to do a variety of things. One is it reduces days incarcerated. So by people accessing housing, like we talked about earlier, they're able to, you know, reduce the amount of times, if not completely limit their days incarcerated and reduce recidivism because they're able to find stability in housing. And housing is really critical to keeping people from needing to recidivate. It also, you know, on the health side of things, decreases hospital admissions because people are able, again, to find stability. We find cost savings because of all of these things, because people are spending less time in prison and jail. People are not recidivating as often, and hospital admissions go down. The state and the locals save money in the long term, and it gets to better outcomes for the client. This talks about different interventions, which has to do with housing models. And just, you know, believe it or not, transitional housing and emergency shelter are oftentimes more expensive in the long run over than permanent housing. We often find that both you can see on the left there, the return to homelessness within the last 6 months, permanent housing, of course, has the best results. And then when you look at what the monthly costs and the total cost after 2 years, because transitional housing often has a maximum of 2 years. We looked at 2 years. You can see the cost of permanent housing, and then you can see the evidence behind it. And so it just gets to the point of like what can be done and what the success rate is behind permanent affordable housing. So this is less about Housing First, but just to hit on the fact that oftentimes people ask about transitional and emergency shelters in a Housing First system, and really those are part of a continuum, but they are not the end result. Somebody that's in a shelter is still experiencing homelessness. Somebody in transitional housing can be considered experiencing homelessness still because it's not a permanent housing intervention. And so those are often pieces of the puzzle that are part of the journey to permanent housing. But they are not the end result, and the end result is a home that's permanently affordable to somebody. So just to hit on, this is more on the system piece. But. So these are some examples. So Returning Home Ohio, this is an initiative that came out of actually a state corrections department in Ohio that provides rental assistance and services for parolees, and they don't have a huge. You can see they serve 186 participants, and you know they've expanded this program even more recently. I don't have the most recent numbers, but you know they changed this from a pilot program to a permanent program after finding such great results with this, and you know, and by by providing this permanent housing, they found that they got lower incarceration rates or lower recidivism rates and less people experiencing homelessness as a result. So you can see from that initiative, there was a higher participation in services. You can see that 290% more likely to get outpatient and 41% more likely to participate in services, 40% less likely to be rearrested, and 60% likely to recidivate back to prison. So this is something in Ohio that has been very successful to this point. There are some other ones you can see here, some other programs, and most of them serve probationers often. We find county probation departments investing, but you can see here that each one you're finding fewer arrests, fewer shelter days, lower recidivism, longer housing stability, all as a result of providing supportive housing and housing and services to this population. Even some more, these are different programs in one in California. Again, I'm not going to harp on this point, but just that it's been really successful around the nation. So I really want to hit on this one, which is in Los Angeles, a great case study through the LA County Department of Health Services. They have an office called the Office of Diversion and Reentry. And they partner with the health departments, the probation departments, the courts, and the DA. And they've invested over $125 million over 5 years to provide 2,500 people intensive case management services, in-reach services, interim housing with treatment and supportive housing for people with felony cases that are experiencing homelessness and behavioral health disorders. And this program has been incredibly helpful. They actually just released another study on this program. It's kind of a model for the entire country. It's part of a larger program called the Flexible Housing Subsidy Pool in Los Angeles, but it's a really successful program that's been going in Los Angeles. And again, you can see some of the results. I think there was actually a recent study again that came out about 6 months ago. I could probably find it and share it, but this one found more healthcare utilization, and this actually studied income as well. So found that they were able to enroll them in income supports like SSI and get them increased income to be able to be stable. They found a 96% housing retention rate, which is I can't emphasize just how incredible that is. A 96% housing retention rate after 1 year is like, I don't know that there's a program in this country that has that successful of a housing retention rate for any population. So it's incredible that they were able to accomplish that. And of course, incarceration rates decreased pretty significantly. And this program continues to get investment from the local county, and is just a model for what any jurisdiction could be doing, and how to really look at this and provide the flexible housing necessary. They typically do this through a scattered site housing model with wraparound services, and have just found such success. So it's really a testament to how you can do this. So. And as it mentions on here, this has to do with the Housing for Health program, but the ODR program, I believe, just released their data like this year. So I could probably find that and share it, but it's very similar results. And that's what I got for you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Are there any questions for Chris?
Yeah, I have a question. My name is John. I'm here with the RICE program with St. John's Well Child and Family Center. Do you happen to know of any policy or legislation that protects people from being asked questions about their history of incarceration, or if they've ever been convicted of a felony?
Yeah, unfortunately not. I mean, typically, you know, there's an initiative that I'd love to see passed called Ban the Box, which takes that off of tenant screening. But no, that hasn't been able to get through.
Yeah, it's one of the barriers that we've come across very aggressively. It's always one of those red flags.
Yep.
Can I jump in and respond to that, though, from a different perspective? Even though there's not legislation that bans that question, there is HUD guidance on kind of criminal history policies in housing, and they do guide against blanket criminal history policies. So if you suspect that a landlord is using criminal history as a proxy for some other type of discrimination, that might be an angle to pursue as well.
Thank you for that, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts to share?
Nothing in the chat.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you so much for your time, Chris. We appreciate it. I'm sure if we have any additional questions, I'll reach out. If anything comes in that I don't know how to answer, I'll certainly reach out and request some additional support from you. But I really do appreciate the information that you shared as our grantees are launching their projects or facilitating those projects. That's some great information that they can take to make sure that they are adhering to the Housing First principles and the philosophy. So I really do appreciate you providing a little additional insight into how that can come into play for their grant programs. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tanya. And thanks everyone for all your work. And if anyone does have questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Right. Give me just a second while I reshare my PowerPoint. Okay. So now we are ready for another grantee presentation. Coming up to the stage is Family Assistance Program. Oh! Are you here? Are you here?
Tremendous. Yes, I'm right here. So,
yay!
Yes, so to follow the guidelines, our project name is Rental Assistance Grant Program, very original. Now I did yesterday, because everyone was using the word amazing, I had to go on and look for different synonyms so I could describe our staff. You know, they are extraordinary, they're impressive, and they are miraculous. And joining us today is Devin Bays, Elsa Scott, Kanaya Foster Anderson, Karina Anderson, and Matt LaTaylor. So they're all part of our program. Devin's doing the day-to-day, Elsa is financial, Kanaya will be doing some fiscal and reporting. Karina's in direct services, and Matt actually wrote the grant himself with some help from the rest of our team. Program is in San Bernardino County, and it will provide 300 formerly incarcerated people with temporary housing, money to cover rent, move-in costs, and housing navigation. While in the program, the participants will also receive a number of supportive services through the care and coordination aimed at increasing life skills and self-sufficiency. The funding will also help us to open up 5 new housing locations designated for our parolees in our county. We've already begun that process, including an emergency shelter. We will have 2 full-time housing advocates, which will help provide rent subsidies, monitor housing, and help with affordable housing, completing apartment applications, and communicating with property owners. Our rental systems program goal is to increase self-sufficiency and independency of our program applicants, and our objective there is to provide 300 participants with housing navigation, rent subsidies coverage, and move-in cost assistance. Another goal is to decrease the rate of homelessness among the recently released inmates, and we will provide 140 participants with emergency shelter and food, and we will provide 60 participants with transitional housing. We're going to try to reduce the amount of recidivism among probationers and parolees. And again, 300 participants will receive case management and referral services. Other life skills and healthy relationships will be also available to all participants.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Ken. We appreciate that. It sounds like you guys have quite a bit of action going on. And I do know that you two are a double winner. Am I right? You guys also have the warm handoff?
So yes, we've been involved in the warm handoff as well. And we're just looking forward to the opportunity to help the San Bernardino and Victorville community, in integrating all these programs.
Awesome.
It has been a challenge. COVID has, as everybody knows, it's been a challenge this last several months dealing with some of these issues and COVID. So I'll just throw that in there.
Yes, thank you. I'm sure we are all still trying to figure out how to deal with some of those things. So thank you so much for sharing your project with us. Thank you so much for playing along. Let's hear from our last group of today, and that will be, drum roll, please. St. John's, you're up.
Hi, everyone. So my name is John. I'm with the Reentry Department here at St. John's Well Child and Family Center. Also on this call, we have Jack Morris, who is our housing navigator, and you'll be able to hear a little bit from him later. And our finance team wasn't able to make it, but those individuals are Eliza Macare and Lizette Baldillo. So here at St. John's, sorry, let me get my notes out. But so here at St. John's, we're in South LA, we're in Spa 6. And the main thing that we do is we're a federally qualified health clinic. And the main thing that we do is our focus is on health. So we provide medical services to the general public, dental services. We have programs here for behavioral health. We have help for folks who have tested positive for HIV and Hep C and provide treatment, substance use treatment. We have a transgender health program, a benefits enrollment program for those who need to get some type of proper benefits to enroll into medical care services. And we also provide additional help with mental health services. So we have 11 health centers and 2 mobile clinics, but here at RISE, which is our reentry program, we have a group of community health workers that provide intensive case management services. And the number one thing that I think is special is that all of us have lived experience with incarceration, including myself. And if not direct experience, indirect experience through the incarceration of a family member who has been incarcerated. The main things that we usually do help folks with are simple, just re-entering back into the community with proper identification, folks encountering some type of barriers with parole or probation. So we do help provide legal services. And for things that we can't do in-house, we resort to outside referrals, and that's usually for legal services, job training, and placement. I'll let Jack talk a little bit more about our our housing program, and he'll be able to elaborate a little bit more.
Thank you, Johnny. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. My name is Jack Morris. I work with St. John's Well Child and Family Center. I am the housing navigator. I was the community health worker for about 2.5 years. Our program is designed to assist those that have been impacted by the justice system. Our housing program is a rental assistance program. It has, at the beginning, it was difficult to get started. We had a housing navigator that was affected as a result of the COVID intake. We lost our program director, so the beginning was rough. But in the last 90 days, we've been moving forward. We, in fact, have enrolled close to 25 to 30 people in the last couple months into our housing alone. And our housing program has taken up to almost 50 individuals enrolled in its totality. Our community health workers, we have 6 of them, address the social determinants of health of all our clients, including the community at large. St. John's accepts everybody in the community, whether they can afford healthcare or not. Our job is to serve the community, and the best way to do them is give them access to those services. And that's our program. I hope we're all able to work together at some point in time. I think we can contribute to yours, and I hope you can contribute to ours. Thank you.
Yeah, and to answer the last question, something that we're looking forward to, at least as our team kind of moves forward with this project, and we have already initiated our project, I think it's really just changing the narrative of folks who are coming home from incarceration and just showing the normal public, right, that if somebody has the adequate services and the support systems, that they will thrive, they'll excel. So that's one of the things that we're really looking forward to about this project and what the impact it may have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John and Jackie. I really appreciate your sharing of your program. And I do know that you guys are also part of the Cohort 1, and you were partially funded in Cohort 1 and were able to get full funding through the expansion for Cohort 2. So you guys have a unique situation, but we're glad to have been able to extend that additional funding so that you could continue and expand the services that you're offering in your community. So thank you so much for sharing your project. Looking forward to seeing you continue to expand your services and do some good work out there in your community. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And it looks like we have arrived to the close of our session today. So we'll open it up. Are there any final questions? Anything that was covered today that you want to ask a final question on? Anything you want to comment? Any concerns you want to share? It doesn't have to be about today's concerns. It can be about anything for your project. We're open. We have plenty of time if you want to just chat about some things while we're here.
Yes, Tanya, this is Candy from Arcola's Bay Area location. And I just wanted to say thank you for that that breakout that we just had. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting with Jackie Morris and finding out all the good work that they're doing at St. John Well Child and Family Center. And I told him when I grow up, I want to be just like him or them. And just, I'm looking forward to providing more services to the men and women that are in need. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Candy, for sharing.
Thank you.
Candy, thank you.
Anything else? Any other thoughts, comments, questions that anyone wants to share?
All right.
Okay.
I have to say it. I have to say it. I have to say it.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I'm looking forward to working with everybody in this cohort, and everybody can meet one another. And just for language purposes, because some of us are system impacted, that it is I don't want to hurtful, or it's a better way to refer to a person who may came from prison that may be on parole or probation than call them a parolee probationer, because they're our brothers, our sisters, they're our mothers and our, and our daughters, and they're more than just the status of supervision. And so it kind of like dehumanizes people when you take the person out of it and just put their status. So for language purposes, that we could just, use language that's affirming for the people that we are serving, it would be good, particularly for people like myself who have been system impacted, and I was always more than my supervision.
I totally agree with that.
Thank you so much for sharing that very critical point, Kim. And as we know, those of us who have been in the industry for a while, we can see the shifts, how we are moving as an industry to really take that sting out of that history. And so that's just a good reminder that we do want to stay aware of the language that we're using and how we're identifying with people who have been system impacted. So thank you for making that point and bringing that to bear on us. Thank you so much. Any other thoughts or questions? Kanaya, is that Kanaya? I see your question in the chat. Participants or what other terms? Kim, would you like to share, or anyone else, would you like to share any other ways to address those folks so that we're conscious of the language that we're using? I know we have used like participants or something like that. Are there some other strategies that you would throw out for people to consider?
clients, if you're teaching education, your students.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. Anyone else have anything else they want to share or add? Returning citizens, Shirley put in the chat. Yes, thank you. As we prepare,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm kind of, I'm not very much for the term returning citizens because it does not include folks with lawful status. And it also doesn't completely give the rights back to those people who have been exiting in incarceration. So most folks who do come home are disenfranchised, so they don't have their full citizenship rights.
Okay, that's a key point to mention.
So what term do you prefer?
I at most just try to use people and say people who have undergone incarceration. I know it's difficult, but I just try to use people just to keep it simple.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that conversation. That's a good topic to explore. As we prepare to wrap up, I want to remind you tomorrow is going to be a big day. Tomorrow we're going to talk fiscal responsibilities. So make sure that your fiscal people are here. This is going to be great information for them. We'll talk about invoicing and desk reviews and progress reports and budget modifications, all of those great things that you are certainly interested in knowing about. So make sure that your fiscal people are here, make sure that your project people are here, so we can get through that information, and then we'll be wrapping up our session. So I hope you all have a fantastic afternoon, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.